And I guess the final straw was May 4th of 2007, the final hearings. Now, I was thrown out in limine on March 12th. They threw me out because I brushed my son's teeth, that I had, he accused me of, removing his leg braces, which he'll show pictures on there. There was plastic AFOs, I did, all that. But again, I told the judge, I said, Your Honor, none of those were put into effect until November the 4th. And the indictment was saying on October 28th, you brushed your teeth. On October 28th, you did this. And I said, yes, I did. But the new visitation guidelines that said I wasn't allowed to do all that is dated November the 4th, whatever it was, 2006, their new visitation guidelines. So those weren't even in effect yet. But they threw them in limine. The judge threw me out of my case, told me I wasn't allowed to come back in. So in the final hearings, the final 3 days of the final hearings, I wasn't allowed to go into my own hearings. I wasn't allowed to be in there. And so I had to sit outside and wait for hours at a time. And after the final hearing on the 4th, they did let me go up, and my sisters wanted to ask me questions. As I left that evening at 7:15, I went outside. I realized my purse. I asked the family, does anyone have my purse? I can't find my keys. I can't find anything. And, of course, they said nobody had it. And I said, I think I left it back in the courtroom. And so the police officer who walked me out said, okay, I'll walk you back in. She walked me back in. And, of course, it was 7:15 or so in the evening. And the auxiliary lights were on in the courthouse, so it was pretty dim and dark. And there was just one or two police officers still there. And so she walked me back and into Randall Rogers' courtroom. And as she walked me in, the lights were dim and only the lights in the front of the courtroom were on. And so as I came out of the dark and into the light, there was the judge sitting on his bench in his black robe. To the right of him, or actually it was to his left, my right, was the jury box. In there was J. Scott Killow, the ad litem, Robert Bandy, ladies' attorney, and in front of them were two Baylor attorneys with their briefcases open. All of them, the judge, Bob Bandy, Scott Killow, had papers in their hand and ink pens, and they were signing papers. When I walked up and saw them, and they saw me, there was, you could have heard a pin drop. It became so quiet, no voices, no talking, nothing, and all of a sudden they lowered their papers. I walked to the front, I picked up my purse. As I turned around to leave, I saw Howard Britton, my former attorney from the year ago, who had withdrawn, was walking into the courtroom, which he'd done several times during the case because, and the judge always said, well, Mr. Britton is concerned about this case. Mr. Britton is so concerned about this case. And I thought, if he's so concerned, then why isn't he still my attorney? Well, a year later, as I'm walking out of the courthouse, here comes Howard Britton walking in. And he just comes in the light. He's all smiley. And, of course, I can see him. And he comes into the light, and he's looking over at the attorneys. And then he looks over here and sees me. And he said, hello, Susan. And I looked right at him, and I said, so did they pay you enough money to sell my son? And at that moment, the judge said, get out. You need to leave. We'll find you in contempt of court. Get her out of here. And, of course, they took me out of the courtroom. And that's when later, 2 years later, someone actually mentioned to me, they said, how can you find you in contempt of court when court wasn't going on? And I said, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. All I knew was he was going to send me to jail. So, and of course they threaten to sue us regularly. If we ask the wrong questions too many times, that's it. I'm going to find you in contempt of court. You're going to jail. And so, it's just, that was just pretty much how this ended up. And that's where we are now.
What do you hope to have happen with your Supreme Court brief that you're putting in? Wasn't it due Monday? It was Monday that you did it, right?
June 15th.
June 15th. Okay.
And, of course, the other attorneys have 30 days to reply, which they said they're not going to reply to. So we can only pray that the Supreme Court will compel them to reply and that they can hear the case. Should they hear the case, we've asked for Scott Killow to not be paid the $94,000 and the other $9,400 that he's asked for the city to pay for. We've asked for my in limine to be reversed and remanded, and and we've asked for my guardianship to be reinstated, and that they would actually rule the guardianship void ab initio, because it was never really, they kept filing that there was a guardianship when there really wasn't. There was no papers filed each time. They kept renewing an expired guardianship. And so we asked that they reverse and remand and make me the permanent guardian for Luke, which we can then put him in serious rehab. We can get him proper medication for his HIV and his hepatitis C, and and get him healthy again, to get him to a hospital, to get him off of all the medications. And in fact, the pharmacist even wrote and said, he's on 15 medications, he's on way too many, you need to check these and reduce it down to 9. And Dr. Schneider wrote in there, noted, reviewed, continue. And so Lucas had protein calorie malnutrition for over 2 years, and they've not done anything. He has sleep apnea and has no video to even watch him at night when he sleeps. And we definitely want to get him to a hospital and have him completely checked over and have good doctors to look at him, neurologists, pulmonologists, infectious disease doctors, all the above. And, to find out why, if he's blind or not. They haven't even taken to an optometrist to even get his eyes checked to see if he can see or not. And, nowadays you can go to the optometrist and they just measure. You don't even have to read off the letters. They just put the little machine up to your eye. It measures the width, the distance, everything like this. They said, okay, here's your prescription. It's that simple. They could do that with Luke and find out whether he could see or not. They haven't even done that. And of course, his gums have grown up so far over his teeth and over his retainer that he doesn't have any teeth left to even is showing. And so, he needs proper care. And we want to see too that he sees this. They said he has allergic rhinitis and sinusitis. Well, why hasn't he been to an ear, nose, and throat doctor for the sinuses? Why hasn't he been to an allergy doctor to find out what he's allergic to? And, to get them under control. Why hasn't he seen these doctors? So that's what we want to accomplish. We hope to.